Hello and welcome to Database Management Systems. I'm Jivita Christie, and in this video, I'm going to explain to you set operations in SQL and we're going to implement those on the database that we created in the previous videos. So let's begin. The first question is, for each employee ID, find the last name of all employees making more money than that employee. Now, the first thing we need to do is to understand the question. So I'm going to do select star from employees. This table, this query does not require two tables. It requires one table, but it will be used twice. I'll show you how. So this is the table, and what we basically want as a result is ID of an employee, for example, 4, and next to it, there should be the last name of an employee, not necessarily software, but a last name in such a way that this employee ID must be having a salary less than whoever's last name you are displaying. So, for example, if you pick 4, then with 4, you will find out what is the salary of 4. Salary of 4 is 60,000. How many salaries are greater than 60,000? So there is one here, 65, and this is 70,000. So there are 2, which means there should be 2 rows in your result. First row should be 4 with aware, and the second should be 4 with be the leader. So that's the type of result we are aiming at, and this should be done for each and every employee ID. For example, with 1, you will not have anything with 1, so there will be no row containing employee ID 1 because that is the highest salary, so there's no salary greater than that. And that's the type of thing that we want using this query. And so what we are going to take is a Cartesian product in this case. Cartesian product can be done in this manner. You will write down select, and I need to display the employee ID and the salary. So employee ID and salary, both taking them from employees. But I won't be just writing employees. I will be writing employees, comma, employees. Whenever you write 2 tables in this manner with a comma in between, there is no join, it's just a comma, then naturally a Cartesian product is taken between the 2. Now the problem is when I write employee ID here and salary here, then there's a problem of which table it belongs to, whether it belongs to the first employees table or the second one. So to distinguish between the 2, we will give new names to the tables, and let's call this table E1 and this table E2. Now I can distinguish and say that I want employee ID from E1, so I'll write E1.employee ID, and I want salary from E2, so I'll write E2.salary. Now that's not it. I still need to put the condition where the salary, okay, there's a slight mistake here, so I'll just finish this query and begin again. Let's clear the screen and display all the employees. Okay, so what I want is E1.employee ID, comma, E2. I want the last name, not the salary. What I want to display is the last name. So last name from employees E1, comma, employees E2. So that's the first thing. I want this to be a Cartesian product. Now the condition is that this employee ID, whoever's employee ID is displayed, should have lesser salary than the person whose last name is displayed next to it. So you can write down here either even.salary less than E2.salary, or you can write E2.salary greater than E1.salary. So I'm going to go with E2.salary greater than E1.salary and put a semicolon and hit enter. And so I'm getting all these people. Now let's verify the answer. I'm getting 2 4 times. Now is that correct? Employee ID 2 is having a salary of 40,000, which is less than 1, which is less than Be the Leader. So Be the Leader is coming. It is less than 50,000 hardware. So hardware is coming. It is also less than 60,000. So software is coming. And finally, it is less than 65,000. So aware is coming. You can, of course, go ahead and check the rest of the data also. And like I said, number 1 is not present anywhere because number 1 is having highest salary, and that's why it is not combined with any last name. Now let's move on to the next question. The next question is find all dates on which projects either started or ended and eliminate any duplicate or null dates. Also, it says to sort the results in descending order. So that's what we are going to do. Let me clear this. So find all the dates on which the projects either started or ended, and then it says to sort these results in descending order, duplicate null values, eliminate duplicates as well as null values. That's the question. Now, which table would we require for this? We would obviously require the projects table, since we require the dates, and dates are only present in the projects table. So this is the projects table. Now what we want is the start date and we want the stop date, and we want to combine the two. We want all types of dates from the projects table, whether it's a start date or a stop date, but we want that in a list. And we want to make sure that they are not duplicates and they are not null. So to do that, first we will select the start date from projects. To make sure that start date is not null, I'll add a where clause and say where start date is not null. Also, now I'm going to write the same query again, but this time I'm going to add a union between the two and write down stop date from projects where stop date is not null. Now, what about duplicates? Duplicates will be automatically removed because of the union. And the reason we are taking a union is because we want a combination of start dates and stop dates. And let's run it. And there are 4 different dates coming. To verify the answer, we can check all the start dates and stop dates from the projects table right here. These are the start dates and the stop dates. And you can see 14th March is coming 2 times, but here we are getting it only once. 3rd July 2003 is coming, 30th November 2003 is present, and 3rd Feb 2005. All these null values in stop date are not included. So this is how you can perform union between 2 queries, between the results of 2 queries. The first query gives me all start dates except null. The second query gives me all stop dates except null. And when I combine the two, it does a union between them and gives me a combination of both. So that is how you can do this type of a query using the union operation. Now for the last question, No, this is not the last one. There's one more to go. So this question is about intersect. Here we are going to use the intersection operation. So the question is to use intersect to find the first and last names of all employees who both work on robotic spouse as well as hardware department. So once again, we will be doing this in two different parts. The first part will be where we will find out all employees who work on robotic spouse, the first names and last names. And in the second part, we will be finding all employees who work for hardware department and then take an intersection between the two. So for the first query, I'm going to write down select, and after writing select, I will mention the first name and last name because that's what I'm supposed to show. So select first name, comma, last name. Now to know that an employee is working on robotic spouse, I would need three tables. Employees table to find the name, first name, last name. I will need the works on table to find whether the employee is working on robotic spouse or not. And I'll also need the project table to find the ID of robotic spouse because we are not given that in the question. So select first name, comma, last name from, I'm going to write employees. This is going to be a slightly longer query, but that's all right. You'll get the hang of it. So employees join. I'm going to take a join with works on using employee ID. That's the common column between them. And we are also going to take a join with project using project ID because that is common between works on and project. Now, once this is done, I also need to add a where clause with the condition that the description of the project must be equal to robotic spouse. And that's my first part of the query. I'm going to intersect this result with the second part of my query, where once again I'm going to fetch the first and last names of employees, but this time I have to make sure that they work in hardware department. To do that, I would require the departments table and employees table. So I'm going to write here employees join departments, and between these two, if you watched the previous videos, you would know that they have two columns with the same type of schema but different names, and those are depth code and code. So instead of using the keyword using, we have to use the keyword on, which I have used here. And once that is done, so from employees join departments on depth code equal to code. And there's also a condition after that that says that the department should be hardware. So the name of the department should be equal to hardware. If you're having trouble understanding the names of the different columns that I'm using here, you can go ahead and describe all these four tables to understand which columns belong to which table. Or you can keep with you the document that I provided in the videos where we created the database. That would also help to know which columns are present where. Now, once this is done, I'm going to hit enter. And it gives me Harry Hardware. And of course, we need to check this. So in order to check it, first of all, let's find out who is working on robotic spouse. Now, I'm not going to show you the show this to you in detail. Let's just assume we know the code of this. So select star from works on. We know that the code is robo SPSE. In our query, we cannot write it directly, but we would know that this is the code. If we do not, we can always go to the project ID and description from projects. And here we know that robotic spouse is having a code robo SPSE. Using this code, we can go to Works on Table, find out who's working on this project. So we have employees 3, 4, and 5 working on this project. Now, who are employees 3, 4, and 5? We can get their names from employees table. 3, 4, and 5 are here: Harry Hardware, Susie Software, and Abe Advice. Now, for the second part of the query, we need to check which of these are working in the hardware department. Even without checking in the departments table, you can tell that this is the code of hardware department. But we can always take a look, just because that's how the query is working. So this is the departments table. Here, the name hardware belongs to the code HDWRE. So from here, HDWRE is selected. And remember, from the previous query, we got 3, 4, and 5. Now from here, the only thing we require is HDWRE. So we will get only this one. And now if you take intersection of 3, 4, and 5 with just 3, then you'll end up getting only 3, which is Harry Hardware, which is the result that we are getting here also. So that's how you can do intersection, also a set operation in SQL. Let's proceed to our last question. This question makes use of set difference, which is another set operation in SQL. So we have done Cartesian product, we've done union intersect, and now we're going to do minus, which stands for set difference. Now the question says we need to use minus to find the first and last names of all employees who work on Robotics Pulse, but not for the hardware department. So it's more or less like the previous query. We need to just make, instead of intersect, we need to use minus. So I can just use my up arrow key and get the previous query. You can do the same if you don't want to type. So this is the first line of my query. Hit enter, press down arrow, and this is where I'm taking join between 3 tables. Press down arrow. Once again, this is the third line of my query, where I'm mentioning the description to be Robotics Pulse. Again, press enter. Now, if I press down arrow, it gives me intersect. But what I want in this place is not intersect, but minus. So I'm going to write down minus. Hit enter. Now your down arrow will no longer work. So you have to use up arrow and get your select first name, last name part. And then this is not the part we want. We want, after this, if you just keep doing up and down arrow keys, you'll be able to get what you require. So we want this line that joins employees with departments. Hit enter. Down arrow, where the name of the department is hardware, and hit enter. And you can see it gives me Abe Advice and Susie Software. These are employees 4 and 5. Now what actually happened is, we are doing, in this case, it's the same logic, but we are doing minus. So in this case, we are taking 3, 4, and 5, and from there we are subtracting 3. Last time it was intersection with 3, so we got Harry Hardware. This time Harry Hardware gets subtracted, so the only 2 names we get are Susie Software and Abe Advice. So that's how you can perform minus in SQL, a set operation. And we're going to continue with this in the next video. So I'll see you there, and thank you for watching.